Considering that the majority of the energy exerted by players consists of knocking heads and throwing each other to the ground on a routine basis, actual fights are a rarity in the game of football. The NFL is stringent in limiting the unnecessary violence that occurs on the fields. Player ejections are often a sight to behold. Very few go quietly, opting instead to make as much of a scene as possible. When fans get ejected, the same is true. Here are some of the most notable NFL Stars ejections. Number 1. Albert Haynesworth. It's hard to classify this moronic incident as a fight because one side really didn't have much of a chance to retaliate. Albert Haynesworth has made many poor decisions, both on the field and off the field. However, this incident in October 2006 was his most despicable act. After Dallas Cowboys running back Julius Jones scored a touchdown, Haynesworth, playing as a member of the Tennessee Titans, removed the helmet from center Andre Gurode. Then, while Gurode was on the ground, Haynesworth decided to stomp on his head. The footprint caused a gash near Gurode's eye. Combined with the fact that he took off his helmet while still on the field, Haynesworth was ejected from the contest. 1 day later, the defensive tackle was suspended 5 games without pay by the league. Number 2. Brandon Stokely. Denver wide receiver Brandon Stokely was ejected from a game against Philadelphia after he accidentally swatted a referee during an argument. Stokely argued he was interfered with on a 3rd and 1 pass over the middle. Sheldon Richardson. Seattle Seahawks defensive lineman Sheldon Richardson and Quentin Jefferson were ejected in the 4th quarter of 2017 30-24 defeat to the Jacksonville Jaguars. The ejection came as members of both teams got into scuffles on consecutive plays as Blake Bortles kneeled to run out the clock inside the final minute. Some Jaguars fans threw their drinks at Jefferson as he was on the sideline heading for the locker room. Jefferson attempted to scale the wall into the stands and had to be held back by a Seahawks team official. Jefferson and Richardson discussed the situation after the game. Number 4. Marshawn Lynch. In October 2017, Marshawn Lynch was ejected from the Oakland Raiders' 30-31 win over Kansas City Chiefs midway through the 2nd quarter by making contact with an official. Lynch ran off the sideline and into a scrum after Chiefs cornerback Marcus Peters hit Raiders quarterback Derek Carr late, drawing a flag for a personal foul. Several Raiders offensive linemen went after Peters, an Oakland native and close friend of Lynch. Peters showed up for the game wearing a beast mode sweatshirt from Lynch's apparel line. Lynch, who had 2 carries for 9 yards before the ejection, bumped line judge Julian Mopp in the chest and then grabbed the official by the jersey before letting go and tending to Peters. Number 5. AJ Green and Jalen Ramsey. Things weren't going AJ Green's way in 2017. The veteran receiver was not getting many catches, with only 1 for 6 yards in 1/2 of a play against the Jaguars. As his frustration boiled over, Green lost his cool when he was pushed from behind by Jalen Ramsey. In response, the Bengals receiver threw Ramsey to the ground and punched him in the helmet several times. This led to both players getting ejected from the game, and afterward, Green did apologize. Green's ejection from Green put that to rest, however, when addressing the media after the game. He said that the fight was not caused by anything Ramsey said, but the repeated cheap shots Ramsey had been taking throughout the first half. Number 6. Bruce Irvin. At the start of 2015, Seattle Seahawks linebacker Bruce Irvin was ejected following a brawl on the penultimate play of his team's 28-24 loss to the New England Patriots. The pernicious punctuation Irvin left behind as he exited the field of the University of Phoenix Stadium captured the ugly side that the Seahawks swagger-filled culture can lead to. To his credit, Irvin did apologize for the outburst on Twitter, recognizing that he wasn't an exemplary role model. Number 7. Aqib Talib versus Michael Crabtree. Denver Broncos cornerback Aqib Talib and Oakland wide receiver Michael Crabtree were ejected early in the 1st quarter of November 2017 21-14 Raiders win, just after getting into a scuffle that ended up involving several players. Both Talib and Crabtree were given unnecessary roughness penalties. The fight started after Talib pulled off Crabtree's necklace. At the end of the play, the two then engaged in a push-off match that ended up knocking over at least a couple of people standing on the sidelines, just before Bronco players swarmed them. After being briefly separated, both players threw punches at one another. Number 8. Cortland Finnegan versus Andre Johnson. In the recent past, Tennessee Titans cornerback Cortland Finnegan had a reputation of being an instigator toward opposing receivers. Well, that reputation was verified on November 28, 2010, against the unusual calm Andre Johnson. The Houston Texans wideout had been battling Finnegan for a majority of the contest. Thus, in the 4th period, Johnson's fuse blew. Right from the start of the play, the two engaged and pulled each other's helmets off. Johnson forced Finnegan to the ground and then punched him twice in the jaw before being pulled away. Both were ejected and fined $25,000 each, but neither received a suspension. Number 9. Kendall Langford. The Seattle Seahawks and St. Louis Rams had been chippy all afternoon, with multiple penalties and some extracurricular activity after the play. Things finally came to a head late in the third quarter, when Rams defensive tackle Kendall Langford got ejected. During yet another scrum after the play was blown dead, Langford was flagged for unsportsmanlike conduct. While trying to plead his case, his arm brushed against an official, knocking his hat off. This earned him an automatic ejection. Langford was livid at the call, throwing his helmet down as he left the field. That drew a second unsportsmanlike penalty. Awful afternoon indeed. Number 10. Aaron Donald. Everyone's allowed to have a bad day. Even Los Angeles Rams superstar defensive lineman Aaron Donald. On September 12, 2016, Donald and the Rams faced off against the San Francisco 49ers at Levi Stadiums in the season opener for both teams. It was also Chip Kelly's coaching debut for the 49ers, in the Rams' first game since bolting from St. Louis and readopting Los Angeles as their home city. The stakes were high. Los Angeles, as it turns out, was destined for a terrible season, 4-12 overall. San Francisco was somehow worse, going 2-14. But for this one game only, the Niners looked like Super Bowl contenders. Midway through the fourth quarter, with the Rams down 21-0, Donald was ready to call it a night. 49ers quarterback Blaine Gabbert tried to scramble on a design run and was taken to the ground by linebacker Alec Ogletree. The tackle had a little something extra to it. Linebacker and quarterback exchanged words. The two teams mouthed at each other, and a scrum broke out. Donald wasted no time joining the fray. He ran up on a wide receiver, Quentin Patton, grabbed him by the back of the neck for some reason, and he tossed his helmet aside. Patton, momentarily taken aback by the escalation, looked like he wanted to retaliate, then quickly grasped who had just gone at him and wisely decided to retreat instead. The referees conferred and assessed 2 penalties against Donald: a 15-yard personal foul for grabbing Patton by the neck and escalating the mini fight, and an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty for making contact with an official. The second infraction led to an automatic ejection, which is a rarity in pro football.